Good afternoon. On behalf of the Indiana Memorial Union Board of Directors, I'd like to thank you all for coming out to be with us today. My name is Vaughn Allen. I'm the Director of Public Relations for Union Board, and it's a great honor of mine to introduce to you now General Colin Powell.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be with you in Bloomington this afternoon, and pleased to be at Indiana University and to have been invited by the Union Board, and also later this evening to participate in a new awards program in honor of the former Chancellor of Indiana University. So it's a great day to be in this part of the country. I've just come in from Canada, where I helped the Premier of Ontario launch the Ontario Promise, which is now the Canadian counterpart to the work I'm doing here in the United States on America's Promise. And with that, I'd be delighted to take whatever questions you might have. Thank you very much. No? Not going to work, huh?
The information that's been revealed about Governor Bush over the last 24 hours is going to affect this race?
Oh, I think it'll bounce around for a day or so with everybody sort of dissecting it and both sides commenting on it one way or another. And then I think it'll be put into perspective. 24 years ago, Governor Bush at age 30 had a DUI conviction. There but for the grace of you-know-who, so go many of us. He paid for that infraction. He didn't try to duck it. He had his license suspended, paid a fine, and expressed his regrets for the incident when it was brought to his attention yesterday. So I think it'll kind of fade over the course of the next 2 or 3 days when we see all kinds of charges going back and forth as we reach the climax of this amazing democratic process that we have, small d.
Should voters be taken aback by the fact that he did not disclose it?
I wouldn't be taken aback particularly. He gave the reasons that he did not disclose it. It wasn't anything that, as near as I can tell, was disclosable or required to be disclosed. He was trying to protect his daughters, which I find to be a reasonable position and something many of us would try to do. But I don't find it to be an earth-shaking event. It seems to have been something that happened in the past during a time when he has candidly said that when he was young and foolish, he was a little young and foolish, and he regrets this incident. It was some years later that he realized he had to pull himself up and live a different kind of life. And I think we should all take a look at the life that he has been leading and the kind of life he's leading now and the kind of leadership he is planning to bring to the American people after next Tuesday.
But General, since he's running for the highest office of the land, especially being Commander-in-Chief, if he were to get a security clearance, or if he were to enlist in the armed forces, he would have to disclose this information for a background check. The American people might then say...
I don't know that he, sure, and but I don't think anybody has suggested that he hasn't disclosed this information upon being asked. I don't know. I've been traveling all day, so I don't know what bounce the story has taken. But it's a different matter if in some security form or in the process of getting a clearance, and this, I believe, happened after his military service. If in the process of getting a clearance, that question was asked and it was not answered at that time, that would be a different problem. But I don't know what the problem is right now.
But the American people are, in effect, hiring him for this position.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I'm missing the point of the question. The question being, why didn't he tell the American people every single thing that has happened in the course of his life? And in this case, something happened almost 25 years ago, which he was embarrassed about. He paid for the infraction. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the end of the story. Now that it has been called to public attention, he spoke to that directly, saying that it was something that happened. He was young. He was not proud about it. He did not wish his daughters to know about it. So he did not openly disclose it without being asked about it. And I have no idea of how the story has moved in the course of the afternoon, whether there is some suggestion he was asked about it previously or did not answer it or anything of that nature.
Were you aware of this incident?
No, of course not. No.
General, have you been in discussion with the Bush campaign about any possible role in their administration?
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate upon that?
No. No, Governor Bush and I have had a number of conversations. I've been trying to help him along the way, and I'll be out with him tomorrow. But no job offer has been given to me, and therefore no job offer has been accepted since none has been offered. And so that we go to the next step quickly, don't ask the hypothetical question as to what I would do if I got such a job offer, because I would give you a major duck.
General, what will be the biggest challenge in Middle Eastern policy for the next administration, regardless of which gentleman wins?
Well, let's hope that before the next administration we get the violence out of the situation, that both sides are able to convince their followers that this is leading nowhere. This kind of violence is an anachronism in today's world, and that we have to stop it. And I hope that the President, and we're all hoping that the President will be successful in persuading the leaders to do that. I heard in the course of the afternoon, I'm not sure about this, I'm not confirming it, that there was some hope that President Clinton would have the chance to meet with President Arafat and Prime Minister Barack again soon. I hope that is the case, and I hope this time they can deliver both sides to a cessation of the hostility and the violence, and only then can we get back on the process of peace. And the next administration will be challenged to keep that process going forward, but it'll only go forward if the sides in the region have as much of a desire for peace as does an American president. You can just do so much. But I'm confident that whether it's Governor Bush or Vice President Gore, both of them will have that long-running commitment to the peace process, which has gone from administration to administration, regardless of what party was providing the president at that time. And really the current peace process began right after the Gulf War under President Bush's leadership, when we had the Madrid conference in the fall of 1991, where we started this new process. We got to get back to that. What the people in that region need: peace, and then a settlement where the legitimate interests and rights of all parties are considered. We are at the toughest part of that negotiation, Jerusalem. It's not going to be easy, but it can't be resolved in the streets of Jerusalem and the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. It has to be solved at a table where men and women of goodwill come together to discuss their mutual concerns, interests, and where both sides recognize the right of the other side to exist and to live in peace with its neighbors. And I think the next administration will have to try to bring that to a conclusion.
Should Americans be concerned?
Let me just take the, yeah.
Just following up, should there be a concern in America as far as national security here and the escalation of violence there leading to war that certainly would affect us more than it is now?
I don't think it will lead to war of the kind we knew back in 1967, 1973, those kinds of wars. That capacity and that situation doesn't exist anymore. But when you have this kind of widespread violence, it starts to spill over in different sorts of ways. People suddenly starting to give Iraq some benefit of the doubt because they're part of the other side opposed to Israel. People questioning American motives. And so there are these spillover effects which makes the whole situation volatile. Was the USS Cole action a derivative of this unrest? I don't know. But this whole condition of unrest disturbs the entire region, although I don't think it will lead to the kind of wars that we have seen in the past between Israel and her neighbors. And I don't think it will lead to, if the essence of your question, well, it will lead to American military involvement. I don't see that at this point.
In your opinion, is the world overall a more dangerous place than it was 8 years ago?
It's dangerous. There are new dangers in some ways, but old dangers have gone away, and I think you have to keep it in balance. As we watch television every day and read our newspapers every day, there's this flood of information coming in on a crisis here, a crisis there, whether it's the Middle East or Iraq or North Korea, or whether it's Bosnia, Kosovo, which tends to get our attention. But we shouldn't forget what went away, and what went away was a threat that had the capacity to destroy us as a nation and as a way of life. That threat went away when the Soviet Union and the Cold War went away. And we are now trying to structure relationships with the two successor nations to that old empire: China, People's Republic of China, and Russia. Two large countries with large populations and with potential and with nuclear weapons. And neither one of them at this moment is an enemy of ours, nor should we wish that to happen. And I think we can handle those relationships in a way that will not happen. So we got rid of a lot when we got rid of the Cold War. These new challenges are harder to deal with in some ways because they don't have the same rules that we used to have. And in many ways, they're fueled by old cultural and tribal conflicts and not ideologic contests and conflicts. And very often there are things we just wish we could do to stop the problem in Sierra Leone, stop the killing in Rwanda, snap our fingers, send in a few troops, and that problem's resolved in that part of the world. But the problems are not that simple any longer. Many of them, I think, will resolve of their own accord as people realize that continuing to kill one another and fight in this country of ours doesn't lead anywhere. We're not educating our children for a new world that's out there. So I think slowly but surely, the nations that are still trapped in these sorts of circumstances will realize the futility of it all. It's interesting to watch what's happening in North Korea. There is the American Secretary of State being feted in a place that is still, a totalitarian state unlike anything the world has seen in recent years. Nevertheless, they realize they have got to start doing something different. We don't know yet what that new thing will be, but they're certainly reaching out in a way that we couldn't have imagined just a year ago. So I think as more nations realize, if you want to be a part of this 21st century, you can't keep yourself trapped in these tribal conflicts or hanging on to dead ideologies. But no tyrant wants to give up just like that. It tends not to be the case. It tends to be a case where you finally hit rock bottom and you've got to do something different.
Do you look forward to an opportunity
this will be the last
yourself
question.
No, I'm okay. Yeah.
to have an opportunity to directly impact the way things are going around the world?
You must not have heard my answer to the earlier question, young man. In one way or another, I would hope that I will have a chance to speak out on issues that I have studied in the course of my life. I have been a national security advisor, a deputy national security advisor, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, so I have a continuing interest in military policy and foreign affairs, and will speak out whether I'm in private life or in government.
Pertaining to the Balkans.
Let me who hasn't had a question?
I have one more question.
Did you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to see if there's a new one. Young lady, yeah.
Do you have any message for the college students of Indiana and college students in general to get more involved, to vote on Tuesday?
To do a lot of things. To vote on Tuesday. Any student that's eligible to vote should register to vote and vote. It is your responsibility as a citizen. I'm also going to encourage the students at Indiana University this afternoon to not only vote, but to get involved in other ways, to reach out within the community. The youngsters who are at this great university are youngsters who are successful in life. And I want to use their success this early in life to help other youngsters coming along in elementary school, middle school, high school, who wonder whether or not they can be successful. And college students are great role models for that. A better role model than some 63-year-old grandfather who doesn't know why we wear our hats backwards or baggy pants. And that's the message I'll be giving to the youngsters this afternoon. But also vote, get involved, run for office, sit on school boards, do all those things that are part of being a good citizen and not just become a millionaire with a new IPO at age 23.
Pertaining to the Balkans,
Let me just take anybody who hasn't had one.
How long can we afford to be our brother's keeper without becoming a major target, like what may have happened with the USS Cole and things? We're always the one to lead the involvement into helping keep peace and things like that, and then put ourselves as a target.
The world invariably, when they can't solve something with regional efforts, or if the UN isn't able to solve it, they come to the United States because we bring superpower status, not just our military power, which is certainly there, but also our political power, the power of our example, our economic power, and our diplomatic power. And it's not something we can walk away from. What we have to do, and one of the issues in the current campaign, is how do we decide which ones to get involved in? There are some where we can bring relief and can help, and sometimes we have to stay there longer than we might like, but that's an obligation we pick up when we get involved in such places. My own point of view is make that clear to the American people when you start, that we're going to be here a while, not say we're going to be here a few months and then find yourself there for years. But we have left troops in various parts of the world for long periods of time, and at the end of the day, we have benefited from their presence. But we have to learn to pick and choose carefully those we can make a difference in, and when we can't make a difference, then I think we should be a little more careful about committing the lives of young Americans to that crusade. Two last ones. You read another one?
I wanted to follow up a little bit on that, sir. Governor Bush seems to have shifted quietly on his earlier stand pertaining to the Balkans. Reuters has reported that several Bush campaign staffers have been in communication with the NATO Secretary General and assured him that there will be no unilateral withdrawal of U.S. troops from the Balkans theaters. and there will be no unwavering support for NATO in general. My question is, there's twofold. Why would the Bush campaign do that, and what advice would you give a President Bush, let's say a year from now, if if the situation in the Balkans turns nasty and U.S. troops are hurt or killed?
Yeah. I never heard Governor Bush say, nor Dr. Condoleezza Rice say, we're going to cut and run and come out right away. What I have heard both of them say, and the current flap is over what Condi said a week and a half ago, both of them say we're going to discuss with our allies the kind of operation we're running there, how long we're going to need, what kinds of troops, and is that the best use of American combat troops after we've reached a situation where the troops there are performing police, civilian, and constabulary functions? Aren't there others who can handle that? That really is what they were saying, and they were willing to say that. You know, why shouldn't we discuss with our allies the long-term nature of our presence and how long we're going to be there? Don't we owe that to ourselves? Don't we owe that to the American people? Because of the way that Dr. Rice's remarks were interpreted, both here in the United States and Europe, overseas, people got nervous. And as a result, several days after Dr. Rice's remarks, Steve Hadley, who is on the Bush foreign policy team, called Lord Robertson, the Secretary General of NATO, and assured him that Governor Bush is not coming in and the next day is going to pull our troops out. And he also assured Lord Robertson that we are totally committed to NATO. We have been committed to NATO since it was founded so many, many years ago. And NATO is not going to rupture simply because we have a conversation about the nature of our respective presence in places such as Bosnia and Kosovo. The alliance is much too strong to have that kind of concern. Okay, and you're it.
Thank you very much. What is the future of, even though the Cold War is over, what is the future of nuclear disarmament, not only in the U.S., but across the world?
When I became chairman in 1989, I had under my supervision 29,000 nuclear weapons. When I left 4 years later, we had reduced those numbers by 75%. They weren't all gone yet, but the levels that we needed were going down. It takes much longer to actually get rid of the weapons. You just don't take it down to your local recycling center and have somebody pick it up on Monday morning. So it takes a long time to disarm these weapons and get them off operational status. But between negotiations with the Soviet Union and our other friends in the region, the level of nuclear weaponry has gone down significantly. At the same time, I believe strongly that there is a need for nuclear weapons still in our arsenal, because there are other nations that have nuclear weapons, the Russia and the People's Republic of China, and there is still a danger of proliferation. And our first line of defense has to be, you really don't want to have a contest with us on this subject. You can't win it. We deterred the Soviet Union for all those years. We deterred others for long periods of time. I think deterrence still works, but to deter, you have to have some weapons. I pray for the day when there will be no need for weapons anywhere, and they're all gone. And I also think we should continue to pursue the possibility of missile defenses, which essentially says to an enemy or potential enemy or potential nuclear holder, why do you want to move in that direction? Not only do we have far superior offensive weapons to deal with you and deter you, but we also have a defensive system. And a defensive system is preferable because an offensive system says, I have to destroy you to keep from even thinking about it. But now I can say, I have that capability, but I really can defend myself from you. So I think it's prudent to move in the defensive direction while we continue to get the lowest level of offensive nuclear weapons that our military says is appropriate for the times. We all have to be troubled by the situation in India and Pakistan, where they have moved more aggressively than I would have liked, and we have been discouraging them from years in moving in that direction. Hopefully they're frozen where they are now. But this is why we have to continue to deter countries like Iraq and Iran and let nations such as Russia know and North Korea know and other nations who have the ability to export materials that could be useful to a nuclear weapons program, why we find this very unsettling and why we disapprove, and let them know that very clearly, that we disapprove of anything that gives additional countries the option, especially countries like Iraq and Iran, the possibility of developing nuclear weapons. Iraq right now, I don't think is a major problem. Iran is a little more of a problem. Thank you very much.
Personal recording equipment is permitted, but